Hello. Hi. So, I hope everyone had a great weekend. I know it's the holiday. I hope everyone had a great weekend, a great start to your week. It is Monday, so it's time for our Q&A. Last time that I mentioned the noise, my husband says anytime you watch the live back, you can't hear it. So I'm hoping you can't hear the kids screaming outside. But I am Shamaree. I am a relationship and intimacy coach, and I empower women to get the confidence and pleasure that they deserve so that they no longer settle for lack of satisfaction, especially when it comes to relationships. And we do these weekly Q&As so that I can answer some questions that you guys have been submitting to me throughout the week. I put a little post in my story at least 4 to 5 times a week, if not every single day. So if you have questions or anything that you're interested in getting my perspective on as a relationship coach, an intimacy coach, then you can go ahead and submit those questions in the story when you see that. So you definitely want to make sure that you're following me so that you catch that whenever you think of a question that you are interested in getting an answer for. So I do have my list of questions here, so we're going to jump into that. So the first question that I added here, it was, if you look back, I had a reel that I posted, and it was more or less like things that you should be talking about with your partners before you are having sex with them, or while during the time that you are intimate with them, right? And so one or a series of the responses that I put in the video were essentially your last STI screening, the results of that, and things related to STIs. And so in the comments, someone mentioned that some people lie about their STI status, and it was kind of asking can condoms prevent STIs even if that person is lying, or even if you don't know about them, right? So a lot of people don't know that they have STIs. If they're not getting tested regularly, then they wouldn't necessarily know unless they have symptoms. Usually that's when people are they get right on top of it when they start to experience symptoms that impact them negatively. But not everyone has symptoms when they have an STI. So there are people who don't know. And if they don't know, that doesn't mean don't be safe. But I can understand not necessarily having that conversation, because I get it. Sometimes we get caught up and we don't have that conversation beforehand. Although I do encourage everyone to have that conversation beforehand. It's very important. And with the lying portion of things, if you ask someone when their last test was, of course they can lie. If you ask to see results, or even just for them to tell you their results, of course they can lie. There's no way we can prove it, because we can't make them bring us to their doctor. We can't make them show us their private health information. So of course there is always that the risk, obviously, right? But what I suggest is anytime you're going to have a new partner, you can, when you're having a conversation about sex and potentially becoming sexually active with that person, then you can suggest that you guys go ahead and go get tested together. The reason I say this is because if you go together, you at least know when their last test was. If we went on Monday, I know for sure your last test was on Monday. Maybe you went after that, but I know at least that you had a recent test, right? So I always encourage going together for that reason. When you get your results, it's going to be separate. They're not going to know your private information and vice versa, but mostly when you get tested at this point, they have portals where you can log in and you can view your results from anywhere, essentially. So if you are a person that would feel more comfortable with being able to view the results to know that this person is not lying, you can request that they just show you, and they can cover their birth date, their weight, or whatever. If they don't want you to see too much about them, they can cover that. But this way you know when the last test was, and you can request to see the results, because usually by the time you get your results, you know that they probably gotten theirs as well. So that kind of makes it a lot easier to have that conversation. And as far as the lying, it minimizes it a little bit. Like I said, you can't make them tell you their private health information. We got HIPAA. There's no way for you to really find out unless they give you permission explicitly to find that information out. But you want to just try, have the conversation, be open about it. And condoms do prevent most diseases, but not all, because a lot of them you can get from skin to skin contact. So you want to be aware of that as well. So when you're going to get your tests, you want to make sure that you confirm what you're being tested for, because there are some tests, especially for herpes and things like that, that they don't do automatically. So you're going to want to let them know that you're wanting to get tested for everything and make sure that they know what those things are. And then you get those results, you share them with the partner, they can hopefully share theirs as well. And then from there, you can kind of plan how you're going to protect yourself, whether they have an STI or not. So that's kind of how I would approach it. Go together. Hopefully you guys are both open. If you're going to share your bodies with each other, I think that you should at least be able to have a conversation about it. And if you guys are not on the same page, then that's fine too. There's plenty of other people who would be. So that's how I answered that in the comments. But I did think that it was kind of important. So I just wanted to bring that up here as well. But the next question, so I was on a podcast this weekend, and this was a question that someone had written in and kind of explain their situation a little bit more fully, but I'm going to kind of summarize. So why do men like you to be freaky or even bisexual initially, only to be intimidated or closed off later on? And so what I kind of like, she explained this whole thing. So she's bisexual. She considers herself to be a little bit more freaky, a little bit more experienced sexually than her partner. So it was a woman calling in about a man. And she said that she's a little bit more experienced than him. She's done a lot of things, and he is not as open whenever she mentions these things, and even kind of turned off, it seems, by some of the things that she's interested in or some of the things that maybe she's done. Whereas in the beginning, he was all about it. He thought it was cool. It was great. And what I mentioned is, and this goes with pretty much anything, a lot of times in the beginning, we think something's cute or it's cool or intriguing. But over time, sometimes that can be the thing that becomes a bother to us. It's something that we don't like and that we don't care for. So maybe it's cool that maybe you find someone really funny, right? So like I've had this experience before where I'm like, oh, he's so funny, he's so fun, he makes me laugh all the time, and like it's easy because of that. But later on, like, we're grown, we're adults, you gotta be serious sometimes. So over time, it became annoying. It's like, yo, can you ever be serious? So sometimes it's the reality of it. We think it's cute in the beginning because we're growing to like this person. But over time, once life comes in the way, as we grow our lives together and as things happen, sometimes it can become something that we are annoyed by. So that is completely normal with anything. But then the other thing that I was thinking about when it comes to men, especially in the beginning, I think that is very sexy. It's very intriguing. It's like, oh, she's freaky or she's bisexual. I can't wait to experience that. And it's more so a kind of a selfish thought, I think. But a lot of times that's what it is. It's like, because they're visual creatures, just the visual that you get when you hear someone say that, it's exciting. It is. So they are all about it. They're into it. But sometimes that reality kicks in. So as the relationship grows, maybe you're the person that they want to spend their life with. And a lot of times, a lot of men have a perception of the type of woman that they're having fun, crazy, freaky sex with versus the woman that they want to spend their life with and have their children. They think that you can't be both at the same time. And this is with a lot of men. If you hear all the podcasts and such, I think, you know. So they have this perception in their mind that you can't be too freaky. You can't be too sexual and still be this ideal partner for them. So they kind of categorize you and want you to be over here in the wife categories, because now we're getting serious and I want you to be my wife and I want you to mother my children. And so I think that sometimes it's a little bit of that, just the reality of like, man, she's really about that, but I don't necessarily want her to be about that now. And so sometimes it's a little bit of that, but just kind of having a conversation, because I think that, like I said, it's a little bit of a perception sort of thing, and it's what society says is okay and what a person should or should not be. And like, really, you should make the rules for your relationship. Like, nobody should be telling you what you should be or should not be. So having a conversation, trying to figure out what it is that he's kind of opposed to, and see if there's a way that you guys can kind of get on the same page, or at least a similar page, a page that's kind of close together. And then as far as the intimidation thing too, I think that sometimes when you've had more sexual encounters or sexual experiences, the other person may feel like they cannot live up to that. And so maybe they shut things down because they don't want to fail. And a lot of times as humans, we do this. We stop something from happening before it happens because we're afraid that it's going to fail, that we're not going to be good enough. So all of those things may be the reason, and it's not something that he's going to say necessarily if he doesn't feel comfortable, or if he just doesn't want to be viewed as being too vulnerable or too soft or whatever the case may be. So I think that that is really important to have a conversation and kind of explain too, like, where you're coming from, because sometimes people can be a little bit more understanding if you explain why you like certain things or what's so intriguing about certain experiences and why you want to share it with them, and kind of give it to them in a way that, yes, I may have already done this act, but I've never done it with you. So we're both going into the experience, and this is a new, like a first time for both of us. Like, I've never had this with you, someone that I feel this way about, and you've never done this before. We're both going into it brand new. So it's not about comparison to previous or anything that should or would make you feel intimidated. So those were kind of some of the things that I mentioned, just greater understanding of your perspective, their perspective. Sometimes that automatically kind of opens it up so that you can kind of work around it. And then also just kind of reminding them that, hey, I'm with you. I want to share this with you. This is why I want to share this with you. And it's new for both of us because we haven't done it before. And so, if you guys have like more questions about specific things that you want me to get into, then I can definitely kind of expand on those questions. But those are ones that, like I said, I've encountered recently. And I did want to add that here just because I thought it was really important and really helpful, especially the STI one. But I do want to reintroduce myself. My name is Shamaree. I am a relationship and intimacy coach, and I empower women to get the confidence and pleasure that they deserve so that they no longer settle for lack of satisfaction, especially in relationships. And I do have a few kind of announcement sort of things. So you guys know I've been telling you about my YouTube channel. Go subscribe if you are not already. If you go to my Instagram bio, click the link, scroll all the way to the bottom, you'll see all of my social media links. If you click on the YouTube one, you can go ahead and subscribe, hit the notification bell so you're notified, because I will be releasing new content there. And I'm hoping and planning to do it weekly on Freaky Friday. That's probably going to start in May. So definitely be on the lookout for that. I have lots of topics that I'm going to be discussing, things that I'm going to get a little bit more into detail about, just because I try to keep it a little clean here on Instagram so I don't get banned or anything. But on YouTube, there's a little bit more freedom as far as the topics go. I can really tell you some things. So some of the topics that I've already kind of come up with is, does size matter? So I talked a little bit about that in one of my previous lives, but giving you specific tips that are helpful for the different types of sizes. There's also going to be like a series on love languages. So figuring out what your love language is, which we all know they have the quizzes and such, but ways that you can show love through those different love languages. So the do's, but also the don'ts. So things you want to avoid. And there's also going to be stuff on fetishes, kinks, and fantasies, and what the difference is between those, and how you figure out what yours are if you do not already know. So there's a lot of things that we're going to get into over on YouTube. Definitely go subscribe. And then the other thing that I'm excited to mention is that I have opened my calendar, and I will be doing 60-minute clarity calls all throughout May. So the calendar is open, it's posted. So if you go to that link in my bio, I believe it's like the first link there. So if you want a 60-minute clarity call, it is for the free. So it's no cost to you. But if you're interested and you have specific relationship concerns, related to intimacy or relationships or anything within that realm, or even if you have quite specific questions that you've wanted to submit throughout the week, but you were just kind of scared. So you can go ahead, go to the link, and when you click on that, you can choose whichever slot works best for you. They are 60 minutes, so we'll be able to kind of go over what your specific concerns are, come up with goals that you can help, that are reasonable and very specific, detailed goals that you can work towards, and give you some specific action steps that you can work towards. And also, if you're interested in working with me further, we can definitely talk about that, because my coaching program will be starting soon as well. So go do that after you finish watching this, if you are interested in getting some support. But I have a couple more questions that I want to get to. So the next one is, why do men have sex with women they are uninterested in? So this, obviously there's several reasons. Everyone's different, so I don't know if you're speaking about a specific person or a group of people. I don't know what their specific reason is, but I can give you some of the reasons that someone would do something like that. So one, I think I've talked about this before, is that, if you're available and you allow it, people will do what you allow them to do. And sometimes, and it's not that, let me go back. It's not that they're necessarily uninterested, because obviously they're interested in something. They're interested in having sex with you. So uninterested in as far as a relationship, or uninterested as far as marriage, maybe that's what they meant. But that's how I took it. That's how I'm gonna assume that's how I took it when I read it. So maybe it's that they're just seeing something in you that maybe they're not seeing for a relationship or for marriage. It could be, and that doesn't mean anything's wrong with you. That could just be, that's not what they see for themselves. Maybe they're not interested in having a serious relationship. Maybe they feel fulfilled through sex, and that's what they're using. Maybe they're just being selfish to get their need met. There's a lot of different reasons that people do that. But again, people can only do what you allow them to do. So if you learn or suspect that they are not interested in you beyond that, and that's not something that you're okay with, then we have to figure out what our boundaries are and set those boundaries. And once we set them, we have to stick to them. So I know a lot of times, especially as women, we'd be like, I ain't talking to him no more. He's cut off. I'm done. But he calls and he's like, I'm sorry, or you're going to come over. We fall back into the pattern pretty easily a lot of times, especially when we are not sticking to our boundaries, or maybe we don't feel the most confident, or we just feel like we need something. We need something outside of ourselves. So it's very easy to fall into patterns. Humans, we like patterns. We love it. It's comfortable. But we have to make sure that if that's not in alignment with me, if I said I'm done with him because he cannot give me what I need, or I cannot give him what he needs, whatever it may be, then I need to be able to stick to that, because I can't rely on him to stick to it. It's not fair for me to rely on him to stick to it. He's going to do what's in his best interest. So definitely making sure that you're knowing what you want, knowing what your boundaries are, and then sticking to those, because men or people in general, they're going to do what they want to do. And they can only do it to you if you open the door for it. So make sure that you are checking yourself on that. And I mentioned before too, if you're constantly attracting this type of person, then definitely we want to do a deep dive and figure out what it is about you that's attracting this specific type, what's making you entertain this specific type. And that's something that we can discuss in a clarity call if you book one of those. And then I kind of threw this other question in that I just got today. So how do you know someone is truly the one? So I kind of threw this in because the uninterested, sometimes it's not that they're uninterested altogether. They're uninterested in pursuing maybe something different with you. So knowing someone is the one, usually we're talking about the person you want to spend your life with, knowing or like getting married if that's something that's important for you, having a family, all of those things, right? And so what I say, there's always going to be this component of chemistry, right? This chemistry, energy, being attracted to someone or being drawn to someone. And I don't mean attracted like, oh, they look good, but let's just like being drawn to someone, right? So there's always going to be a little bit of that, something that we can't account for. Like it happens or it doesn't usually, right? So like when you meet someone, you know if you're drawn to them or not. It's something that you can grow over time a little bit, but usually that chemistry, that spark, that's what people look for, right? That's something that we can't really create a formula for, right? But outside of that, what I always say is make sure that you have a clear vision of what it is that you are wanting, right? So what, not only like, okay, I want to get married, I want to have a house, I want to have children, right? But what do you want that person to have, right? So when I say this, I have done activities with clients, I've done it myself, where you kind of write a list of all the things that you want in a partner. And when I do this, I specifically tell my clients that you can add like a couple, so like 2 to 3 traits that are physical traits, right? So if you want them to be tall or you want them to be dark or like, you know, whatever it is that you want physically, right? But everything else on this list, I want it to be qualities. I want this to be their traits, their personality, what they can bring to you or offer you as far as development and growth as an individual, right? So if they are honest, if they're responsible, if they're dependable, all of those sorts of things, because those are the things that are the most important over time, right? Because your looks may change over the years, but these are things that are typically very constant. Our personality is our personality. We can tone it down or mute certain things for a certain period of time, but the way that we are is typically just the way that we are. So when we're coming up with this list, we want to write it all out, everything that you can think of. But then I also want you to go back through this list and kind of prioritize what things are the most important, what matters the most. And I do want you to rank them. It's going to sound crazy. It's going to be difficult too, but I do want you to do that because this is going to help you to realize what's most important. So obviously the most non-negotiable things, most people have some of those, right? So if they don't want to have kids, or if you don't want to date someone who uses substances or whatever it is, right? Whatever your non-negotiable thing is, you can go ahead and usually those are going to be at the top of the list because they're of most importance, right? But then you want to rank them, go through the whole list, rank them as you will, what's most important, what's not. And then from there, you'll kind of see what it is that you're looking for. And as you're meeting people, that top of your list, maybe, I don't know, if your list is 20 things long, the first 5 to 10 things are things that if the person that you're getting to know or you're beginning to date, if after a few dates or a few conversations, you've been speaking to them, if they are clearly missing several of those, you should probably not even waste your time, right? Because over time, as humans, we naturally bond with people that we share time with, people that we share information with. So the more that you spend time with this person, the more likely you are to develop feelings. So if you know that this person is not the one, based on what it is that you said you were looking for. So this is not something, I'm not telling you what those qualities should be. You wrote this, you came up with this. So you should listen to yourself. You know you. So if the person's not meeting the things that you said you want, then we need to boundaries. We need to be able to kind of let that go. So that kind of goes back to the last question, being able to really articulate what those things are that you're looking for and making sure that you're able to share that. So if they don't have what you're looking for, letting them know that you're not going to continue the relationship, or maybe the relationship will be in a different capacity. Like maybe we could be friends. Maybe you're good for my homegirl or my cousin, like whatever it is. Just making sure that you have a clear vision of what you're looking for. If someone clearly does not meet that, then not even continuing. Like, well, maybe they'll show me later on. They might, but also they might not. And then you've used all that time on someone when you could have been putting it elsewhere. So that's what I would encourage you to do. Then obviously, like I said, there's always that component of chemistry and just being naturally drawn to someone. That's important too. Usually, at least, some people pursue relationships for very different reasons, but I think that that's one way to go about it in a very clear way, so you can be very objective about it. Obviously, feelings, how you feel about someone's going to come into play, and I think that's very important. But just initially anyway, like, you don't really know them to like them, so it should be a lot easier at that point for you to be very upfront, very clear, and should be much easier to kind of pass on things that don't work. So that's what I would say about knowing if someone's the one. You feel what you feel, but then also just being very objective in order to avoid trouble later on. So whatever your values are, your morals, all of those things, typically we work best with people who are aligned in that. So opposites do attract, but over long term, they don't fare as well as someone who has the same values, the same types of goals. So you could be opposites, and maybe you like to read and I like to watch TV. You don't have to have everything in common, but making sure that you have at least most of those things that you were looking for. And when you create that list, the second part of that is making sure that you can offer what you asking for. So if you want them to be able to offer you financial security, to offer you responsibility, dependability, you gotta be able to meet them there. Like, don't be wanting things that you can't offer, because then on the other hand, what is it that they want with you if you can't bring at least most of what they are bringing to the relationship? That's how you're both able to grow and push each other to be better, is that you guys kind of have to meet each other somewhere on a similar plane. So that's how you know. It's very difficult to quantify, but I think that's one way to be very objective and very clear about it. And then the last question here is, can you be too freaky or have too much sex, like your libido is too high? And so I've said this before, but when it comes to like too much, or even on the other hand, too little, this comes down to the individual. So if it's not bothering you, it's not affecting you negatively, it's not stopping you from going to work, it's not stopping you from paying bills, it's not stopping you from washing yourself, from taking care of your kids, from eating, like whatever it is, it's not stopping you from doing anything that you would need in order to successfully thrive as a human being, then it's not a problem. So I don't think there's a such thing as too much unless it is causing issues for you. So that's no. As far as being too freaky, I don't know what that is. I'm gonna be honest. I don't know what too freaky would be. And I've always kind of felt this way because everyone has their own definition of what freaky is. And what may be too much for one person is not even enough for the next. So I don't know what that is. I don't think there's like a definition or a threshold that once you reach here, like that's just too much. Because everyone's into their own thing, and I don't think that there's anything wrong with that. Again, as long as it's not stopping you from doing anything, as long as you're not violating anyone else's rights or their boundaries, no, I don't think so. But that's my opinion. Obviously, if you have limitations and things that you feel very strongly about, then that's what you should define for yourself in your relationships. Because like I said, I think everybody should come up with their own rules for their relationship. I'm here to help guide you to figure out what that is and help you to get comfortable with that and get to that point. I can give you tools and strategies to reach that point, but I'm not going to tell you what you need to do and this is the rule, this is what you need to stick to, because that's not my place. I'm not there. And it doesn't affect me on a personal level. So you want to make sure that you're expressing yourself and you're getting your needs met. And if someone is violating yours by being too freaky, that you're expressing that too. So no, that's my answer, final answer. But I think that is it. It's 333. So I am gonna go. I have some things to do. So please go follow me if you're not. If you made it this far and you're watching the replay, you can hashtag replay. And shout out to everybody who showed up today. Thank you. I appreciate you guys. And next week, we're going to do the same thing every Monday. We do these at 3 p.m. Pacific time, and that is 6 Eastern time. So you'll want to tune in, check out my stories if you want to submit questions. And like I said, go to my Easy Tree, the link in my bio. Check out all of the things. Get on my calendar so I can help you specifically. And yeah, I'll see y'all later.